Well, hello and welcome to the very first Cannigma Advisor Elevation. My name is Dr. Cody Peterson, and I'm joined here by Dr. Lauren Vrabel. And I'm super excited to bring to you something that I've sort of been thinking about and trying to cook up for a while here at the Cannigma, which is really bringing a face and name to what we feel is sort of what makes the Cannigma special, which is our editorial process and our ability to engage and bring experts to the table to review the content. We know that people are going to Google to ask their questions, and unfortunately, they're not always getting sort of vetted answers from experts. So we at the Cannigma, particularly my team, the scientific team at the Cannigma, feel very passionately about trying to make sure that everyone has access to very accessible. That means both, I can find it on Google, but also it's very digestible because we're talking about complex science. We want to really help those people who are asking questions to Google get reliable information. And we have well-trained cannabis pharmacists like Dr. Lauren Vrabel here. So thank you so much again for joining me, and it's great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Cody. It's a pleasure to be here and do this today, and our first one ever.
This is my first, and I've kind of been talking about it. I think I even floated it to you the very first time I had the idea. I'm like, hey, what do you think? You want to go live with me on the internet and talk about you?
And of course I said yes, but
oh yes, I'd love to share all the intimate details about me. So, we're more accustomed at the Cannigma to more of like a podcast format. So we're really excited to kind of, we do webinars as well, but this may be one of our first like one-on-one, what I'm going to call advisor elevations, like an interview style, where we're going to kind of dive into, I guess, a little bit of your background, sort of your qualifications, sure, to be an expert, but really kind of what sculpted your view of cannabis. And we'll get into that in just a second, but I guess for everyone in the room, a full disclosure here, Dr. Lauren Vrabel and I go back quite a long way. What was the year?
2007.
Yeah, exactly. So reaching way back at our first year freshmen in college, pre-pharmacy school, Lauren and I found ourselves at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we always ran in similar circles, but maybe weren't always the closest of friends. And here we bumped into each other around 2020, and I was like, hey, I'm studying cannabis science. And Lauren said, hey, I'm a cannabis pharmacist. We should talk. And I guess in a lot of ways, the rest is history. And now Lauren is one of our most seasoned scientific reviewers on the Cannigma, frequently helping me out when I have tricky articles that I don't have time to review all the resources. She's a stickler for details.
Well, it's very, very nice. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 15 years that we've known each other.
Well, you don't have to say it like that.
I know, right? But I was actually thinking about that the other day, and like we first found each other when we wanted to be pharmacists, and then we found each other again whenever we wanted to be cannabis pharmacists, and how interesting that is and how we came about it different ways. And, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've always lived here. It's been my home for now. And it's exciting to get to work back in that community and stay close to the university as well and give back. Part of what I like to do as a cannabis pharmacist is precept students so that they can see what it's like, because I feel like that's something that we didn't really get the opportunity to learn a whole lot about when we were at Duquesne.
Cannabis?
Yeah.
No kidding. No kidding. Yes. So at our alma mater in pharmacy school, we were not taught about the endocannabinoid system. At least not outside of one class, which was called drugs of abuse, and where we would learn about marijuana and its toxic effects on the body, as opposed to a lot of the, medicinal effects. And really, for me, as someone who's now educating other pharmacists about cannabis, but mostly the endocannabinoid system, it's a disservice, right? If we look at the scientific underpinnings of the endocannabinoid system, it's technically more lipid signaling, the fats in our body being used to maintain homeostasis. We were taught about all the other fats that we know about, the prostaglandins and the bradykinins and the arachidonic acids and the COX inhibitors. We were taught about all of them except this FA and this 2-AG and anandamide. They were sort of excluded. So it was all sort of framed as like, we don't know enough to teach you. But the truth is this is this is the glue that binds it. Like, it's like the collagen in the cells. It's like the endocannabinoid system pins it all together. And so I think it's really unfortunate that we haven't.
Yeah, I mean, because when I first discovered that about the endocannabinoid system, I was just kind of amazed. I was like, are you kidding me? It's involved in everything, and I knew nothing about it, that it even existed in general. And so that's essentially the way I had to teach myself about cannabis, is just to kind of like grab every little resource I could to put my hands on, because there's no one that teaches you this in school, and there's no cannabis pharmacy school. Until recently, until they've developed these master's courses and different programs that actually approach it in the way that it needs to be taught. And so it just blows my mind every day that, we're still not teaching it in schools the way it needs to be. Hopefully we're getting somewhere here and there.
I want to point out, I feel compelled to say that we are working on that. I teach a class with my colleague, Jill Simonian, at UCSD to pharmacy students and to medical students about cannabis science. We're now moving this program to UCI and Irvine. There's a class at UCSD. That's the wrong UCLA that's working on this. So there's a lot of change coming in the cannabis space. And I did just graduate, as you mentioned, from a master's program at a school of pharmacy in medical cannabis science and therapeutics. So lots of change happening right before us. And I think that's the most exciting part about being in the cannabis space. For me, it's like this constant evolution. I'll counter that. It also might be one of the more stressful pieces.
Well, so why is it stressful for you?
Well, there's the pace at which everything's changing is, it's hard to keep pace. And as a pharmacist, we don't have an etched out role in most states. So I think that's a really good transition to the question I want to raise. Or maybe I should make everyone aware, as a pharmacist, I'm jealous of in California, I'm jealous of the status in Pennsylvania. As it stands today, the medical cannabis program in Pennsylvania, and there is no recreational program, requires a pharmacist to be manning the dispensary or overseeing the dispensing of the medical cannabis. So as if it were a medicine, because cannabis is the only medicine that doesn't come through a pharmacist in the current model. So in Pennsylvania, they have mandated the pharmacist involvement, and Dr. Lauren Vrabel is by definition, in the most truest sense, perhaps even more than I, is a cannabis pharmacist. So do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of what you do, your primary job, or what it kind of would entail?
Yeah, definitely. So as Cody said, in Pennsylvania, the program does require medical professionals to work out of the dispensary. You need at least a pharmacist or a physician at one of them. And then the others, we do include nurse practitioners and physician assistants as well. But we are required to check every patient certification. So this is different than what we're used to is a pharmacist with a prescription, where you're given specific set of rules, a day supply, and you can't go over it. You can't pick up again until, you're out of it. The patients are given a lot more autonomy in the program, where the doctors give them recommendations and they can give restrictions and limitations. So it's my job as the dispensary pharmacist to make sure I'm reviewing that, so that if there are restrictions or limitations, we are not dispensing that product. Otherwise, I'm there to counsel patients. And so
that's defined by the doctor, is like the certain products are limited?
Certainly, they can put that in the restriction and limitation if they choose to.
Awesome. It's weird, it's just it's so wild that in the West Coast, we have a medical model, but really all that pertains to is sort of the quantity of product that you can have, some limitations around how many cannabis plants you can maybe grow. But it's crazy how the West Coast and the East Coast have taken this grossly different approach, right? The pharmacist is sort of prohibited from being engaged on the West Coast almost in all of these states. And on the East Coast, this is somewhat common. Pennsylvania, are there any other states that do this, Lauren?
Yeah, Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, Minnesota, Connecticut. Did I name all 6, including PA? And it seems like there's going to be further recommendations to include pharmacists in the programs, to keep it medical, because otherwise, what's so medical about it?
Well, it doesn't look. We need to reform cannabis. Thank you so much, Rob, by the way, for the comments. We love the thanks. Look, pharmacists don't always get a lot of praise But I'd like to think we're useful healthcare professionals with sort of a dynamic understanding of both medicine and physiology, which makes cannabis like a really in our wheelhouse. And I love to see pharmacist involvements in states. I actually, I don't know if you even know this, Lauren, but well, you do. I started a nonprofit, the Pharmacist Cannabis Coalition of California, with a few academics, including the ones that I listed earlier that we're doing. And we're really just driving to engage the Board of Pharmacy, the Board of Cannabis Control, which is now the Department of Cannabis Control, and patients, right? We gotta get everybody talking, make sure that everyone's taken care of. And at the same time, we need to reform cannabis laws so that anyone who wants to consume cannabis as an adult can do that, because we let people buy tobacco and drink alcohol, and those things are killing people, and cannabis is not. Is it perfect? No. But like, come on, y'all. Look at the alternatives and tell me that this policy makes sense.
Yeah, you and I both seem to be a lot involved in policy too. It's really exciting to see that on your side. No, I really would love to take a couple of things that California has done and bring them to Pennsylvania, because we don't have a lot of some of these protections. Ryan's Law is a big one that I'd like to bring in, where, end of life, long-term care, patients are able to access their medicine wherever they are. Another one I just saw that
so that's for the listener, that's actually Ryan's Law is a bill in California that actually protects a patient's right, who's at the end of their life, to use cannabis medicine within the hospital. You can't use a vape or smoking, but you can take cannabis oils, and the doctors must permit this. And this is a really big step for California, one that we're anxious or excitedly presenting as far and wide as we can at that nonprofit. Mm-hmm. What else, Lori? What else you got for me that we're doing over here that you like?
Employee protections. I think
just happened, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We actually have a senator in Pennsylvania who wants to give the employers more control over that, to terminate people who consume in their patients. This is a medicine. We don't do this for any other medicine, unless you're abusing it for whatever reason. And so I think it should be treated very similarly. I mean, you have to be fit for duty at your job. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Especially in the context of a doctor's recommendation. But period. Do we think about this with alcohol, right? There isn't some we just make sure that you're not intoxicated. If you have a doctor's prescription, you can take your medicine, let's say your anxiety medicine, your benzodiazepine, your Xanax, whatever it might be, and still go to work. You just can't become to a point where you're impaired. And that is at the discretion of the employee and the employer and the HR department and all of these factors. It's fit for duty, and it's an assessment. It's a more holistic approach, not did you pee? Have you consumed cannabis in the last 30 days or last 3 days, depending on what testing method. And if people are wondering, how long that things like, THC can stick around your body, I know Lauren and I have both touched on this topic in certain articles that we've reviewed on the Cannigma. So definitely ask your questions to Google around that and just finish your question with the term Cannigma, and you can find a good answer. So, kind of like, all right, we know who you are. You're a Pennsylvania cannabis pharmacist. We're friends from a long time ago. Glad I can orient everyone. You're definitely like one of these faces, sort of helping validate and make what the Cannigma is doing so valuable to the reader. It's really trying to make sure that we cut through the smoke, very much pun intended, as cringy as that may be, and help people get as close to the truth as possible, but also an acknowledgement of what we don't know. I think that's a really important expert opinion too. It takes knowing a lot to know what you don't know, and so bringing in an expert helps us kind of make sure that we're not missing a side of our story. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about how and why you got interested in cannabis? And so maybe give them a little context around our friendship. I discovered cannabis in college. I was a late bloomer in some cannabis consumers' eyes, but not in all. In some cannabis consumers' eyes, I might be an early bloomer, Lauren. So could you tell me a little bit more around when your background, and then when your opinion changed?
Yes, yes. I mean, okay, so I did dabble in it in high school. I was always a little bit of a rebel, doing what I was told I shouldn't do. So it's not that I always hated it. I tried it. I just always heard that it was bad and not a medicine. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not allowed to do it. My parents would be so mad at me. So yeah, in general, drugs, it's bad. Yeah. So no, it's not appropriate. It's not good. It's not okay. And so my relationship with cannabis is a lot different than probably a lot of other people who are attracted to the industry. I was at a point in my life where a lot of things were telling me to get into the industry, to choose this career path. I had been working for Walgreens. I was coming on my 10-year anniversary, 5 as a pharmacist. And I had been floating for half of that time. I'd finally gotten a store after being told I was next for so long. And I was with a really awesome partner. I loved working with her. And, it was a dream come true. I probably would have stayed there for a lot longer if they didn't separate us. And I was back to floating again, and was really upset with some of the empty promises. So I started looking around. But around that same time, I had a patient come up to my counter and say, "What do you know about marijuana?" And it's like, it's illegal. and they're like, "Oh, well, no, we're getting a medical program in Pennsylvania." And I'm like, wait, seriously? I was really kind of nervous that I was going to keep getting questions and I wasn't going to have the answers, because that's one thing that a pharmacist
learn about it, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of the things a pharmacist has to do is know the answer immediately so that you have that rapport with the patient and that you're trusted. And so it was a frustrating moment for me. So I started reading and researching and trying to find all of the information that I wanted and needed. And, I stumbled upon a lot of sources that had false information that was a bit misleading and confusing and really frustrating, which is why I really appreciate the Cannigma, and I get to be a part of it, which is even more awesome, to be part of a trusted source. And then I kind of fell in love with it. I kind of fell in love with the idea that, wow, we've been missing this in our bodies and our lives for so long. I stumbled upon clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome and started reading about it because, you always wonder. I have migraines. I have suffered from them since I was in high school, and sometimes they're debilitating, but I always, pain myself through.
But we don't know what causes them, right? You've seen physicians about this. You've tried prescription medications. I imagine as a pharmacist, you've tried a few, kind of conscious of the alternatives available to you, right?
Exactly.
I think that's an important context, right? Is like Lauren didn't say like, oh, I have migraines, so I started trying weed. Like, you tried amitriptyline and Imitrex and propranolol and all these other medicines.
Yeah. The side effects were so much worse. I hated having a stiff neck, and the nausea I would get from them was worse than the nausea from the migraine. So I started to wonder, is this the one thing I've never tried that could work? And I decided, okay, let's get your foot wet. Let's just at least apply for the job and see what happens. Yeah, I dipped my toes in. I didn't become a patient right away in the program. I seriously remember saying, I don't know if it's going to be a part of my life, because I didn't want to just go in and drink the Kool-Aid. I wanted to make sure I was assessing it for me, and turns out it works.
Right. I mean, it doesn't work for everyone, and it takes a little practice finding what works for you, what delivery method, whether you're an edible person or you're someone who inhalation works better, and then if that's not the case and you can't really find that sweet spot, sometimes it takes going to an expert or really sort of exploring outside of that THC molecule to find, a cannabis product that works. Some people are just very sensitive to THC. Other individuals are literally lacking the stimulation that THC can deliver. So it's really about our unique endocannabinoid system, which one thing I'm excited to be working on the Cannigma, and I keep talking to Alana about this, so she's going to make me put my money where my mouth is. I'm about to say this, is we're working on an infographic around supporting your endocannabinoid system and really trying to turn up the volume without cannabis.
Nice.
And more to come on that. So you'll review it, so don't worry.
Yay! Because I actually think a lot of those are my hobbies, ironically.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about cannabimimetics, which is really the term that we're talking about, or another term that's frequently now being used by endocannabinologists, like the Knox doctors in Oregon, is cannabinergic, and this is to stimulate the endocannabinoid system. And one of these activities is, for example, singing. So it can really be, I guess, I don't know, exciting to think that what we're doing in and around like with our bodies and with our friends groups, and whether we're drinking and whether what we're eating, the fats in our diet, can all change the endocannabinoid system. So really, really fun stuff that we could, I don't know, get the opportunity to explore. And then we're going to get a chance to try to bring it to the masses, Lauren. And that's what I love about my role at the Cannigma. It's like, it's not just taking, your voice and elevating you. It's about answering the people's questions. Like, people want to know, and they can't get reliable answers just from any source. And that's why they need to come to the Cannigma. And we look forward to seeing them there. The formulas and alchemy of cannabis are so complicated. That's the truth. Thank you, honey. We need pharmacist experts in cannabis. I agree. Now, not all cannabis. I don't think we need pharmacist experts in cannabis. A young, healthy 20-some-year-old can probably figure weed out, right? But if you, honey, or someone that you know, your loved one, came to me and said that you're taking numerous prescription medications and you'd like to start cannabis, particularly CBD, but all cannabis, I'm going to have more questions. What exactly are the medicines you're taking? What exactly is the dose that you're talking about and the product that you're speaking about? What delivery method? Because we can probably do a topical without a problem. But the pharmacist is inherently the person to answer this question, because every other medicine, I answer these questions. So it's for me, it's a no-brainer, Lauren. And sometimes I just want to shake. I can see that we have some fans here. We got some pharmacist fans here.
Yeah. I love that. But I have to disagree with you on one thing. I even think that the 20-year-old can really benefit from a pharmacist consult. I mean, I know we're in different states. So like here, I've had very valuable conversations with young people who think they know a lot about cannabis, but always end up walking away learning a little bit more, or at least knowing where they can find a better resource. Or even some of the people I've worked with, I have to tell them, you might have cannabis hyperemesis syndrome if you're always nauseous when you get to work right now. Or, take a tea break because you're complaining that you have to consume so much to treat your pain. It might be time to, consider other alternatives that they might not have ever thought to do.
Yep. So just changing their delivery method. Yeah, absolutely. But like, this is what's so valuable, is like, people need to know that there's different ways than just taking large doses of inhalable cannabinoids. A lot of people, this is what they know has worked for them in the past, so they keep leaning on it. But this master endocannabinoid system can become tolerant and even out of balance, in the wrong context. Again, it's not just about the weed you're smoking. It's about how you're moving your body, what your other health conditions are, what you're eating. All this stuff ties into endocannabinoid health and part of endocannabinoidology, as Anna just said. So there we go. New favorite word, endocannabinologist. I like that. That's a cool term. I think the Knox docs coined it. Anyway, so I totally agree. There's a lot to unpack, but just really cool hearing about your story and how cannabis sort of helped you. Well, no, it is because the Lauren I remember back in college in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was pretty averse to cannabis. You saw very little utility in it, but mostly it was a lot of stigma, right? Yeah. Like you said, it's not that you thought it was toxic. You took the drugs of abuse class. Actually, I did not. I didn't get any ECS exposure, whereas Lauren did get a little. And in that context, I think you recognize that, hey, this isn't like, heroin, for example. This is still a relative harm. But that didn't change your opinion. You went through the drugs of abuse class and kept that out. So I just think it's really cool to see the evolution and see how cannabis helped you. I know you've talked before about how it's helped some of your loved ones, and I feel the same way. I have absolutely helped loved ones either sort of help with end of life pain, fighting cancer, or deal with epilepsy or autism. So much utility in this beautiful plant. Can you tell me something? What's just like the thing that puts you in awe about the cannabis plant? Like, what is it that really like geeks you out?
I'd say the one thing that really, really excites me about it, or I just find is like a fun little factoid, is that the plant that we all consume, that we're extracting, we're utilizing is a female. It's a female. And in fact, if there's any males growing around them, we pluck them right out and throw them away.
We snip them. We murder them. We call the males, as I like to say it. So as soon as they identify their gender, the plants, that they are indeed whacked. Now, of course, the male cannabis plants are still used by breeders, right? But a lot of people don't know this is called dioecious in the plant world, and this means separate male and females. Think about like humans, right? We have a very distinct male and female. But a lot of plants are not. They're monoecious. They just have different flowers on the same plant of female and male flowers. As opposed to female and male plants, they typically grow one type. So you're absolutely correct, Lauren. The herb that you and I have this shared affinity for is the female cannabis flower. The male cannabis flower makes far fewer cannabinoids and much more pollen. It's a wind pollinator, the cannabis plant. So the male's always sort of blowing all over the place.
You kind of got to think about it like the bull at a dairy farm.
A bull at a dairy farm. You're saying this is how the male cannabis plant is kept today, like the stud, the best around gets saved and the rest get sent for slaughter.
You like that analogy?
It works for me. I mean, it's plants, not cows, but it works. It works for me. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's one of my favorite things about cannabis that a lot of people just don't realize is that it's this female cannabis flower that we consume. And another important fact is because when the male is removed from the environment, the female continues to sort of wait, awaiting the pollen of the male. She tends to produce more THC and other essential oils like terpenes to protect the flowers waiting for that pollen, and in that time frame accumulates some of your favorite bioactive molecules like THCA and CBDA and all that good stuff. So really cool that we could dive into the science and weave that in. You'll notice I have to pull myself back before I dive into the full nerd section. Okay, let's just talk, I guess, a little bit about you. People already know that you're in Pittsburgh. We share that and everything. But when you're not dealing with cannabis directly, what are you doing? What are you doing in your free time? Tell me about Lauren Vrabel. Drop the doctor.
Yeah, whenever I'm not working, some of the things I like to do, I have a garden in my backyard in the city. I love to maintain, and right now all my green peppers are getting really big. It's really exciting.
Ooh, bell peppers?
Yep. I also am going to have some cucumbers and another round of green beans. So gardening is one of my favorite things to do to get my hands dirty.
Home grow? You got any of your favorite flower growing in that backyard?
It's not.
Oh, you can't tell the police in Pennsylvania. That's illegal in Pennsylvania.
Yes,
I see.
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm a responsible patient.
Well, if you do grow any other, legal flowers, share. Send me a picture.
Sure, you got it. Yeah, and I've been biking a lot this past summer, and it's just starting to get colder now in Pittsburgh, so heading to yoga and just trying to do anything outdoors and have that forest path.
Yeah, we'll talk more about when we get to those cannabis-like activities. That infographic, I'll definitely be leveraging you. That's great. I love to garden as well. I'm struggling. I moved to a place right now that doesn't have any that space. And my poor plants don't even have enough sun. So it's been like 6 months and they've been in like this little corner and they're starting to weep at me. And I'm like, I need
LED lights, buddy. Just get LED lights, the ones that you put on the wall and press.
Oh, well, these has historically been outdoor plants. Maybe they need to become indoor plants. And these are not flowers. These are succulents. Okay, that's great. Another little thing about Lauren Vrabel, I guess this can be Dr. Lauren's opinion as well. But this is a question that I like to cook up. So if you could have one obscure pet, so the dog and cat are out, right? You might even be able to exclude Bunny. That's a regular pet, right? Tell me about the obscure pet, and then you have to tell me why, where do you envision you and this pet going? Like why is it that you chose this plant? So go ahead with what type of plant, and then we'll get into the details.
I'm just laughing so hard because I have to explain myself here.
It's gonna be good.
I would have an opossum or possum, either word is okay.
An opossum?
Mm-hmm. Opossum or
is that the same as a possum?
Well, I mean, they are technically interchangeable, but if you want to get really, really nitty gritty, they may or may be different depending on where they're from.
You're buzzing there, Lauren. We got somebody's coming in. No, it's okay. It's just the whole internet knows that somebody's blowing you up now. The whole internet, whatever that means.
Oh man!
I don't think they're all watching us right now.
Thank God they don't know about my.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Or your plants. Oh, shoot, sorry, I didn't mean to out you. So an opossum is the same as a possum, is just phrasing, or is one like smaller than the other?
It's just dependent upon where they were from. It's technically the same North American marsupial.
So North American marsupial?
North American marsupial.
So you're telling me that this a possum in America has a pouch?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now, does that mean that they came from Australia? Like they're not native here?
I mean, their exact origins, I say, are in the Americas.
Oh, they are native to the Americas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this must be like some sort of ancient marsupial bloodline. It's a land race? I'm just teasing, but that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've now got the possum.
Yes.
He's on a leash, or maybe you're holding his little.
It has essentially a fifth appendage. Its tail can wrap around my arm.
Okay, so he's hanging out with you, right? Okay, so now you got the opossum hanging and you're chilling. Where are you? Right? Like, where are you hanging out with the possum?
We're going in the forest because guess what? It's going to eat every tick that comes around me and it's going to be fine.
Oh, dude, the ticks are getting out of control with the climate change. So this is your safety mechanism to Lyme's disease. You're like, no, not for me. I'm going to get a bodyguard. An opossum, we're chilling, and that's gonna be all right. This is
cute. Don't you think they're cute?
I see you. Cute. Like if something that looks like it could cuddle with you or rip your face off, and you wouldn't know when.
They wouldn't attack you. They wouldn't attack you.
They don't eat meat. Tell me they don't eat meat.
They eat plants and meat, but
where do they get their meat?
I don't know. Actually, I do know roadkill. From roadkill.
I've definitely seen some possums eating roadkill. So they're scavengers, is what you're telling me. So, okay, well, that's nice. Not as cute as Buddy on my shirt. That's exactly right. You can see that Buddy here, as much as he looks like me, that wasn't modeled after me. That's exactly right. Thank you, Marcelina, and all of the team at the Cannigma who helped put this event together. I'm not wrapping up. I just realized as soon as I said that, it sounded like we were leaving, but just shortly we'll get there. But I'm having fun, so I don't want to leave yet. Okay, so just one more question, just like in line. This one wasn't even planned.
Oh, great!
If you could choose one pet buddy, like to go with your possum, like who's his like he's got a pet best friend. Who's the sidekick to your opossum superhero?
I feel like I have to take another street hero and pick a raccoon.
Oh my good, you're gonna have like a real hood rat friend.
I'm gonna have my nocturnal clan.
Yeah, like y'all are into the night. Okay, I love that. And so you get the little like you're all wearing bandanas, but the raccoon has like a natural.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, thank you for entertaining me. I'm glad that we could find some time in all of the professionalism and all of the seriousness, to really just have some jokes. Okay, shifting back away from Lauren Vrabel, I'd like to talk to the doctor again.
Okay.
Tell me about the future of cannabis, right? You're right in the middle of the thick of things in Pennsylvania and the East Coast. What do you hope to see, or what are you expecting to see in cannabis, and sort of lay that out for me?
My hopes are always, geared towards what's important to me in the industry, and that's preventing public harm. So from that standpoint, I'd really love to see the inclusion of pharmacists in other states that adopt medical programs, or if we go federally legal, to make sure that pharmacists are involved in that place, so that we're preventing public harm. We're doing the due diligence. I'd like to see a medical professional or or the expert in that field involved at each step of the process, because they're not always involved at every grower processor or at every laboratory or at every dispensary, or every physician knows the same and it's standardized.
Sure. Not at all. None of that is true. Not everything you just said is like the opposite of the current state of affairs.
I know, and that's why I want education to improve across.
That's where it starts. Absolutely. And
Everywhere.
it starts with younger professionals who are bringing up and recognizing that, look, cannabis is medicine. It comes with a few risks. And healthcare professionals, I would say, yeah, we can reduce harm. That's definitely there. And we will. That's just inherently what pharmacists do. But that's not the focus. I never focus on reducing harm. I focus on improving care. How can I help this individual achieve their therapeutic goals faster? How can we do that with the least drug interactions, the least concern, and all of these super really, I guess, pertinent questions that only the pharmacist is truly equipped to answer, and can only be done in the context of like a real relationship between this, right? It can't just be this fly by the night or, order online and pick up in store if you really need medical care. Now, all that being said, that doesn't mean that again, we need a pharmacist mandatory for every person who wants to buy cannabis. Just patients who want access to pharmacists should absolutely be assured them, ready for this, like every other medicine according to federal law since 1990. Over 90, if I recall pharmacy school lecture correctly, Lauren. So that
over 90, yeah.
Over 90, although it took a couple decades to really kick into gear. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your favorite articles at the Cannigma. We do have a little place where the watchers, those who have joined us, can go ahead and find all of your work and sort of see all the articles that you've reviewed and even a few that you've written for the Cannigma. We can share that in the chat now or later. But I guess I want to hear about your favorite, and then tell me a little bit about why it might be that way.
For sure. One of my first favorite articles that I took a real deep dive into, it was really long and complicated, was the What Are Terpenes article. There were several different ones discussed, and you kind of get down a rabbit hole whenever you start really learning about them and understanding what they are. I think this was like several years ago, Cody. I remember having a conversation with you where I was like, wait, we don't have human data on this. Do you remember this? And I was like, are we confirming this? Because I started going down a rabbit hole on every research article that said a specific terpene did what, and finding out it wasn't in humans. It might have been a property that it had in a petri dish. Or it was something that a sesquiterpene did, but we're trying to contribute it to a monoterpene, and that's not correct either. And you really helped me to kind of understand, since you were learning it in school at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You connect the dots there.
I'm glad I could share that with you, but you picked that ball up and ran with it.
Yeah. And then doing that article was really, really great because I got to thoroughly review each single one and have a greater understanding based off of that. Because that's what I really love about reviewing is, sometimes you're throwing me an article that might not be something that I've read before or entirely interested in. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it because I need to know. Another one of my favorite articles just released recently was your THCP article. Not a lot there's not a lot out there about THCP yet and some of these other minor cannabinoids or synthetically produced ones.
Oh yeah, that part's a really big deal, and we're working.
Or even how they're made synthetically. It's just you think and you go down the research trail, and it's just really exciting to find the real answer.
So for the listeners, THCP is tetrahydrocannabinol, and 4-ol has to do with the length of the carbon side chain. I've got an Instagram or TikTok coming for you in a week on this. But it has to do with how long the side chain is on this THC molecule. It's produced naturally by the plant in uber tiny amounts, but it's also regularly available on the internet in the United States. Like you can buy it right now just by Googling it. And you're lucky if they even ask if you're 18. And so what is THCP? Well, our first rendition of this article that we put together said that it was being derived very similarly to Delta 8 from CBD. And to my knowledge base, and I had pretty well versed in this space, that is generally what was going on here. However, it turns out an organic chemist who we're working again, publishing this update to this article, an organic chemist went out and actually let us know that isn't really the way the chemistry is probably being done. And Mark Sheldon brought it to our attention that this is actually probably a full synthetic, not made from any of the constituents of cannabis, but being made in a laboratory. Now, is that a problem? I probably think so, yeah. Because we tend to think that people need to be protected from people making illicit just drugs in general. Your endocannabinoid system is a very complex, dynamic system. Sure, we know THC is safe, but you start mixing chemicals together in test tubes and then selling that in vape cartridges. You start to have some concerns. I'm not saying THCP is the enemy. I'm saying we need to tread carefully. Nature folds THC in a very specific way, a very specific shape and size generally as well. And that's what we have information on. And we need to tread carefully on not even that THCP is in cannabis, right? It's that when we make these things in a laboratory, there are considerations. Science doesn't care, right, about safety. Science just does what it is. So there can be harmful byproducts. That's what I'm trying to get at, Lauren. I know. You're like, all right, Cody, you're rambling.
I'm not gonna lie, I did stop listening to you for a second.
Look at this! She's like, this guy again. This is showing our friendship. So
I know. I'm sorry. It's a bad habit of mine.
It's okay. I've caught myself. If anything, I'm just gonna use you as my litmus test. I'm like, have I lost my audience? And then I'll be like, exactly. I need to bring them back. You're like, oh, okay, we got you. We got you back. I'm really glad. Okay, so one article that I'm looking at that you wrote is CBN, cannabinol, and a lot of people have questions about this. And as a pharmacist, I feel compelled to try to help break down some of the misnomers and help sort of clarify things around how they're being made and where they're coming from. So CBN is a naturally occurring cannabinoid. It's a natural degradation product of THC. And it's sold as sleep aid. Tell me why a pharmacist's opinion is helpful when we see marketing claims like CBN is the sleeping ball.
So when that happens, I mean, it depends on where you're looking at it. So in my market where I work, if I see CBN in a product, it's typically not the only cannabinoid or even terpene in it. So I don't have a whole lot of worry about the claims for sleep aid there. Because, the research does say that THC plus CBN together has better sedation than either alone. So the problem is whenever where are you getting it from? So is it from the over-the-counter market? Are they calling it a CBN isolate and saying that's a sleep aid? Is that really the best thing for you? No, not according to the research right now.
Yeah, the very limited research from the 1970s, I'll point out. A lot of this, both claims, right, are mostly pulled from studies so old, and you had me pull these from the school library, if you remember. It's like testing cannabinol in man. It was 1970. Yeah, 1970. No, in 1973, 1981. Really relatively old science compared. But this is when this molecule is being studied because they were trying to figure out, hey, is there something that's not THC that we can use as medicine? And they decided basically not really, and they went with THC, and Marinol was approved by the FDA. And Steven has just chimed in for a question, and he's asking about CBN, Lauren. Is CBN psychoactive, and should it be regulated like THC or like CBD?
Oh, I know you know the answer, buddy, but
I don't know anything. I don't know. I'm deferring to the expert here.
Yeah. So let's think about it. If CBN is the degradation product of THC, is it psychoactive? Yeah, possibly, for sure. I mean, of course, that would depend on your tolerance, where you are specifically, but it would be expected to have some psychoactive properties.
Some level. That doesn't mean it's going to get you stoned, right? That's an important distinction. It doesn't that's not to be expected. Psychoactivity, caffeine is psychoactive, right? What's another psychoactive? CBD is psychoactive.
Yes. Okay. So excuse me, I sometimes use the improper terminology because it's kind of hard for patients to grasp the specifics of what you're saying between psychoactive or intoxicating. So I usually do use the term intoxicating. It's the first one that comes to mind so that I'm not saying the word high all the time.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, sometimes we're worried about using such slang language in our medical dispensaries. So I usually will say the word intoxicating, but all of the cannabinoids are psychoactive in a sense.
The majority, there could be speculation around like if cannabinoid acids didn't penetrate the brain, and then you could say that. But we very much think they probably do to some marginal extent. Psychotropic is one word. Thank you, Matt Hughes, for chiming in there. Doesn't really work for most patients, at least not in the States. They really don't know what tropic means, and so like it really gets a little confusing. I like impairing. Right? Because like psychoactivity is this ambiguous, like can change the way you're feeling, but impairing is sort of a gentle way of saying intoxicating, because toxidromes like typically are associated with problems. And just because you're intoxicated on cannabis doesn't mean you're actually experiencing a problem. But look, this is semantics. But the takeaway is CBN, we know, just kind of setting aside what patients experience, which is some mild sedation, particularly at high doses, is what I would see is generally reported with CBN. Setting that aside, we have pharmacology to say that it is somewhat psychoactive. We have pharmacologic data that say there's attraction between CBN and the same receptors as THC. But we do see a reduced action of CBN at CB1, the high inducing receptor. And do you want to read the issue with policy there, Lauren?
Yeah, that's the issue with policy. So CBN is regulated differently based on your location. So that's why Stephen asked the question. And I get it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that I've really necessarily seen it a whole lot in any of like the vape shops or smoke shops nearby me. So that's interesting. It's interesting. I like hearing what's going on in different places for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this, Stephen. And the question it comes down to is, where is the source of the THC, and then how are they turning it into CBN, and what is the level of scrutiny in that chemical process? The concerns around producing CBN from, say, Delta 8 are that there could be from CBD. Sorry. So you're taking CBD. You have to actually close a ring and do a lot of very advanced chemistry to take CBD and turn it into THC. Advanced might be the wrong word, but like it takes energy to do this. And so we have to do this chemistry, and in the process, we can produce other three-dimensional structures that sit a little bit different in space and can have variable effects. I would have concerns around the process of producing CBN sort of from CBD, because there's so many places for error. What about CBD? Do kind of, aside from where you're getting your CBN, which might be from the CBD market, or it could be in the THC market, a legal cannabis market in a state, can you tell me about where else our average consumer might be exposed to CBN?
Apart from?
Well, I always try to point out smoking.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. You were asking a trick question. You like to do that sometimes.
Yeah, I like to think of it as Freudian. Like, I don't know about trick.
Yes. It was a tricky setup. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, whenever you're lighting it, when you're combusting it, you're converting the THC into CBN because of those high temperatures, right, Cody?
Yeah, that's what I think. And so I have a working theory. I took a poll on LinkedIn. I got a few hundred responses, and I'm like, which one lasts the longest, right? Is it smoking, vaping, dabbing? And the vast majority said smoking. And I don't know if it has to do with CBN, but what I know is there is some CBN produced when we smoke, and there is an associated reporting difference between smoking and vaping. Right? I don't have evidence to say that this is CBN that makes the difference between smoking and vaping. There could be other cannabis byproducts that are the magic secret sauce. But I think it's a really interesting finding that the vast majority of individuals agree that smoking is a longer action. And we know that there's biotransformation, or actually a chemical degradation in the smoking process. And to highlight, some experts in the field, I'm sure there's some fans in the audience, what is it? Profound Naturals with Miyabe and Shields and Riley Kirk, sort of front manning their sort of media efforts and science efforts. Brilliant individuals. They both talk about this regularly.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're both awesome as well. Absolutely. They're excellent science communicators, and we need more of them. And that's exactly why we need more pharmacists in this pharmacist's opinion.
I have a follow-up poll for you then. So on the contrary, then would you expect dabbing to be the shortest duration of action? Because, typically in your concentrates, you're not getting CBN because you're extracting it from that fresh frozen flower. It's a live extract. So I guess I just gave away
it's a cannabinoid acid rich usually, right? A lot of the dabbable products are rich in cannabinoid acids, so there will be much less degradation to CBN during the dabbing process. Now, if you're dabbing at low temperatures, there should be almost none. But if you were dabbing at very high temperatures, certainly there could be some production. You can get a torch on glass pretty hot. Certainly hot enough to convert THCA to THC and then to CBN. But I wouldn't expect very much production, just because there's simply not that much surface area touching the vapor at any one time.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would say that yes, dabbing probably has the least production of CBN, but I wouldn't say that it's the shortest. I think there are other you're going to get more dose on average with the dab, right? So that dose dictates duration a little bit as well. So it also dictates tolerance. Look, pharmacology is my jam. I love teaching paramedics about pharmacology, and I'm like, dynamics, kinetics, check it out.
Do you dance for them?
I pace. They're like, what is this guy doing? I think he's on a herb. I think he's on an herb. I cannot thank you enough. Not for this. This was fun, but for all of the work that you've done, helping answer the readers' questions at the Cannigma, helping to be a voice and a representative to cannabis pharmacists all over the country, and for spending the last 51 minutes and 30 seconds dealing with this. Do you have anything that you would like to wrap up and sort of finish with? Anything you'd like to say to anyone who lasted till the end of this interview?
No, yeah. I mean, I do want to say that it's honestly, I feel like it's a privilege to be a part of the Cannigma and to be able to do this. I take it super seriously. I literally, I examine every little thing, every little detail, because it is important for everyone who's interpreting it. And that's what's really great about communication and language is that we are making sure that the message is getting across the right way. I want to thank everybody who showed up and joined us. Wow. I am really excited about seeing all the comments, and I wasn't reading them because I didn't want to get too distracted, but I can't wait to. It really means a lot to me to see everybody there and see your support and see, this everything and the excitement around cannabis. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be transitioning from traditional pharmacy, right? I'm still in the hospital. You wasn't that long ago. You were working in retail pharmacy, and to be helping support this change and really help patients find an herb that can help them with a lot of their issues. It's not going to fix everything, but with some thoughtfulness, mindfulness, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of patience, we can go a really, really long way. Thank you again so much for your time. I want to thank everyone who participated, everybody in the comments section. You are the bosses, the bestest. You definitely want to head over to cannigma.com. You have to go check out more from Dr. Vrabel. You can check out articles that I've written, reviewed by her, and just so many more brilliant people, physicians, who've written for us, and my science advisory team's really leaning into the creating content. For everyone who's watching, we have a cookbook at the Cannigma. Go download it. It's really useful. Some original recipes by Chef Jordan Wagman. For everybody else who's still chilling and wants to see more content, we have a cultivation guide coming your way. We're working on that right now. It's going to be something for all the beginners and intermediates out there. We are so excited to introduce and continue to spread the word about the plant, slow down and stop the stigma, and help support this really growing industry. Once again, pun intended. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Dr. Cody Peterson, and this is Dr. Lauren Vrabel. We're here representing the Cannigma, and we can't wait to do the next interview. We're going to try to do one a month. Can't see you at the next one, everybody. Be well.